Awesome. Well, hello to our wonderful MMSD community and family. My name is Angela Fitzgerald Ward, Director of the Department of Family, Youth, and Community Engagement. And I'm here with another illustrious panel tonight. I'm bringing you a Facebook Live event where we are here to hear from you, to hear about how virtual learning is going with the Q2 changes that have been rolled out, and to share with you information and resources to help you and your family navigate this school year successfully. So before we jump into the topic for tonight, I want to introduce my panel, or rather have them introduce themselves. And so I'm going to start with my left in these Brady Bunch squares, and that's Mr. Jay Affeld.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. My name is Jay Affeld. My pronouns are he and him. I'm the Executive Director of our Department of Student and Staff Support here in MMSD, and happy to be here.
Thank you for that, Jay. Who would you like to hand it off to?
I'm going to hand it off to Bree.
Hey, Facebook. Hey, MMSD family. Hope you're having a great night. I'm happy to be here. I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships with MMSD. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm also really excited to be here. And I will pass it on to Dr. Clardy.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Tremaine Clardy. I serve as Co-Chief of Schools here for the Madison Metropolitan School District. Very excited to be here today to talk about virtual instruction and support our full Madison community. Thank you so much for inviting us into your space today. And I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Pryor.
Dr. Pryor, I think you're muted.
Yes, I would have to get that correct first, right? Once again, good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to be here. I'm Marvin Pryor, Co-Chief of Secondary Schools, and I am very excited to be here this afternoon. Just provide some insight in regards to what we're doing for the children in MMSD.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I also want to shout out the wonderful collaborative team that came together to make this event possible. And so please share your comments, questions in the chat. We will be addressing as many as we can through this panel. We have some pre-planned questions, but we'll try to get your questions as well. But if we do not get to them, there are MMSD staff in the background who are there to support and to answer as many questions as they can through the chat. But if they cannot address questions at this time, please visit MMSD's Virtual Learning Resources Hub. That's mmsd.org/virtual for more information and to get your questions addressed and to get additional resources. And so the goal for tonight is in response to the fact that we are still virtual, which is maybe not a shock to a lot of you. So with the extension of virtual learning through January as of this point, we want to make sure that our families and community have the resources they need to help their students stay balanced and connected at this time. So our session tonight will have a special focus on district health and wellness support, community partnerships, and other useful resources. And so to kick things off, the first question that we have planned for tonight is around screen time, because everything's virtual. We're spending a lot more time on devices. And so people have varying opinions about that. So putting this first question out there to the panel, that many families have shared with us their students are spending too much time on the computer and that there are too many assignments. What's the district's plan to balance activities with screen time? And what are your thoughts on the volume of assignments? So who would like to take that one first?
I'm happy to start. And thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. You're correct that we do get that question a lot. And we appreciate the feedback as we look at our continuous improvement process. The only way we grow and learn is if we hear from you, our school community. In regards to the question of screen time, the adjustments that we have proposed at the elementary level, beginning for Q2 or the second week of Q2, will be we're going to prioritize 4 to 5 core instructional synchronous lessons per day. Again, synchronous means that's work directly with an instructor across the screen. That can be in a whole class, that can be in small groups, or it can be a one-to-one, but we're counting that as synchronous lessons time. By prioritizing 4 to 5 times, that will limit the amount of overall screen time throughout the day and allow students to work independently if necessary or do catch up in other areas, and also just take a break away from the screen. We know we want in the best interest of our students and the families that are supporting them to give a break away from the screen so you can engage in some additional activities that are not directly looking into a camera. We are going to focus primarily around literacy by literacy and math to make sure that we are still highly engaged in those areas. It's not to be dismissive of the other content area, but we're going to prioritize those too. Additionally, on Wednesdays, we have made the adjustment that there will be no new core assignments on those Wednesdays. So that's an opportunity to do one of two things, or maybe both. You can catch up on work and assignments to make sure that you're spreading out your assignments and over the week. And there will be resources for you to do advanced work and to accelerate your instruction as well. And those will be presented on boards for you to engage in. So I'll pause there, as I know that many other panelists want to be able to speak to, but those are some of the significant ways that we're going to adjust screen time. We can talk about some other adjustments as well or during the process. But again, we thank you for that feedback, and hopefully this adjustment for Q2 really helps limit that time that's on the screen.
Thank you for that, Dr. Clarity, as well as just helping people understand or breaking down synchronous, because we don't want to assume that everyone knows what that word means, even though we use it a lot in MSD. So anyone else want to contribute to that question or add anything to it?
Sure. In high schools, well, secondary, I should say, slightly different from elementary in regards to screen time. I would say this, that we were very intentional in elevating stakeholders' voice in the decisions that we made and the shifts that we made moving into the second quarter. And from our stakeholders for the secondary level, we did not directly hear any concerns about the amount of screen time. However, we did receive some feedback in regards to the amount of work that was required of students throughout the week. And so there were some shifts there. One in particular was the amount of grade entries in Infinite Campus per week. We heard that from the teachers as well as the students and parents. And so we've kind of reduced the amount of grade entries per week to lighten the load there a little bit for students, but still focusing on quality learning experiences. And then secondly, it was the amount of assignments, again, because we were utilizing asynchronous days, which was the original intent was to continue to build upon what was taught earlier in the week. But we found that for some, they were receiving additional assignments. And so we made those adjustments there. And we'll talk more a little later about what we have, the adjustments that we've made to better support student learning.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Pryor. I did have a follow-up question, though. You said reduced grade entries per week. Does that correlate with the number of assignments? So are assignments being reduced and that's reflected in the number of grade entries or the reduction in grade entries, or is there a difference between those two?
Well, there's a correlation there in regards to amount of assignments. You know, I'll put it like this, instead of having, you know, 5 mini assignments, perhaps you may have that one assignment that is a culmination of all of the teaching and learning that has taken place earlier in the week, opposed to adding upon that on those asynchronous days, which were Wednesdays.
Awesome, thank you. So it does seem like a common theme across elementary, middle, and high. Correct. Wednesday, don't expect new assignments. There are still things that you are expected to do to be counted as attending that day, but they aren't going to be new things that are appearing on that day.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. If I can just reiterate that to make sure that our school community, Wednesday is not a quote unquote free day. It's still, there is still an expectation of education on the day. It's just the manner in which it's delivered and an opportunity to spread assignments and workloads out across the time is what we're trying to promote with this adjustment, but it's definitely not a day off. There's a high level of educational expectations as always and acceleration.
Thank you for that, Dr. Clarity. Although I think there are some students who will not appreciate that you shared that because Wednesday to them feels like a free day, possibly. But to the adults, it's good to know that there are expectations on that day and attendance being counted as well. All right, is there anything else you wanted to contribute to that question about screen time? And also that seemed to have connected to just updates to how assignments and different things are being captured in Q2.
I just want something to have something I just wanted to add in. And I think, as we talk about screen time and we talk about schedules, I know that this fall feels a lot more like regular school days, with a set schedule, and just wanting to kind of point out the importance of staying in some sort of a routine. And it's so important for our teachers and our staff, but it's incredibly important for students. We know that the more that they feel that things are predictable and familiar to them, the more that they'll sort of have that anxiety come down, and they'll increase their confidence levels. And that's what we want to see. And so the more that, even though we're making some adjustments here, hopefully it still feels like we're in a routine, and that feels comforting to students.
Thank you for that, Jay. I think that's super important as well. All right, so if we're good on question 1, we will transition to the second question, which is, okay, we're virtual now until January, but then what? So any insights or anything that you can share about what the plan may be after January 22nd?
I can start, and
Okay.
I'm hoping that by then we can be in person, but there's so many things that we've got to consider. I think it's obviously our first preference to have our students and staff in buildings, learning face to face, engaging with teachers and staff, and students participating in that full range of activities, whether it's in the classroom or all the other stuff that we know isn't happening right now either. We also recognize that as a district, it's most important that we ensure the safety and well-being of everyone who comes into our school spaces, our students and our staff. So considering that we are in a pandemic, and unfortunately the numbers are still going in the wrong direction, at least here locally, this is sort of where we are now. But I just wanted to highlight at least some of the different buckets that as a district we have to consider when we look at our readiness to sort of open our doors and welcome students back in person. So the first one is around the science. And I know a lot of people say that, like, well, we're going to follow the science. And for us, that's actually epidemiology. And in close partnership with public health, we're in communication with them almost daily, following all of their metrics and their recommendations. But we also have in-depth consult with a number of physicians and researchers at the UW, other scientists and other health experts, helping us understand what's the virus doing in our community, and how do we make adjustments to take that into account, and following their recommendations. The second has to do with community intentions, and obviously we can open our doors, but if families don't feel comfortable sending students back, or if students are anxious about returning, then that's not going to work either. And so whether it's feedback from some of our district surveys or focus groups, or surveys that schools might send out, Q&As, focus groups, we want to hear directly from our students and families, and their perceptions on and preferences for moving forward are really, really important. We also, of course, have to look at our facilities, and there's a lot of actual operational things that we have to make sure are ready to go in our schools, whether it's communications things with signage, arrows on the floor, that sort of thing, focus on air quality and making sure that we have all of those adjustments made, making sure that we have adequate PPE ready to go for staff and students, furniture rearrangement, physical barriers, things like that. And the last is, of course, our staffing plan, and making sure that our staff have a voice in this conversation. We're working closely with Madison teachers as a representative voice for our teaching staff, and making sure that we're all on the same page, making sure that staff are comfortable and ready to return and have all the support that they need. And so there's a combination of art and science here. There's, obviously with all of those different buckets and things to consider, there's a lot of moving pieces. And I think as a district, we of course want to give our families as much notice as we can, knowing how many life changes are affected by whether or not we're in person or not. And just we're committed to communicating and being as transparent as we can. And as we work our way through second quarter, I think there'll be a lot more of that.
Thank you for that, Jay. And for highlighting, there are so many factors that go into that decision. So it's not an easy one to make. It sounds like, not by the least bit.
Yeah, I sort of described those 4 buckets, and as you would imagine, there's like 20 different criteria within each of those. And so there's just a lot of pieces, and it's a decision that I don't know that we can ever say we're going to get it right. And we know that there will always be people that we'll struggle as a result of what that decision is. But I think we just try our best to make sure we're communicating with all the right people, getting lots and lots of input, and making the decision that's best for all in the MMSD community.
Thank you again for that. And speaking of communication, I want to plug again the MMSD Virtual Learning Resources Hub, because information that is made available, resources, things that might be of support during this time, can be found on that site. So please tap into that resource. It's available. If you have any questions, you can also submit them through that platform as well. And what you uplifted about the plan for January or after January 22nd segues nicely into our next question of the evening, which is community and district resources. So for some folks, they're like, okay, I would like for my child to be back in school now for a host of different reasons. And so if we continue to remain virtual because that's what's safest, that could mean that there are families who need to rely on different resources that are available from us or available from the community itself in order to support virtual learning. And so, panel, can you please speak to the MMSD district and community resources available to students and families, and how will families and students continue to be supported throughout virtual learning?
Angela, can I take a step back and to the prior question though, because there's
Absolutely.
something I want to add to that, and not to, and definitely we'll get to this next one. What I want to lift up is just a community awareness for everyone that our behaviors now will be a key factor in our ability to return to school in second semester. And so this is just a really plug to around the safety of everyone that's listening, or everyone that can talk to a neighbor or a friend. Please wear your mask, please practice social distancing, please follow all of the parameters that have been set in place so our real data will drop and actually have a safer space that would allow for a return in second semester. So this is more of like an empathetic plug and just an awareness that, our behaviors, that how we interact now, they play a role in the ability to return to that environment. So I know as a full community, we can lean on each other, we can do our best. We're Madison, we're family. So as a family, let's support each other in those behaviors as well.
Thank you for that, Dr. Clarity. We cannot say that enough, especially at this time.
Sorry, can you repeat the other question?
I was going to say, do I need to repeat it? So yes. So panel, please speak to the MMSD district and community resources available to MMSD students and families, and how will families and students continue to be supported throughout virtual learning?
So I can hop in on the community resources piece, and of course, colleagues jump in on the other district resources. But what this team does, the strategic partnerships team, is help serve as a liaison between community partners and our district and our schools, and really help look at the resources that are going to our schools from the community with a lens of equity, ensuring that students have access to resources across the board, and also just working with wonderful community partners to ensure that we are expanding beyond the four walls of our schools. We could not do the work that we do for our children without our partners. So I first want to start by saying a huge vote of thanks to our partners who've continued to work tirelessly and effortlessly, support our students and their entire family holistically. And so in particular, what became really acute after we closed with due to the pandemic, and then as we got into the summer, is that our partners stepped up to fill gaps. We delivered over 50,000 meals. We established pop-up mobile food pantries. We started a supplies initiative to get at-home basic school supplies in the hands of students. And we launched a childcare program in partnership with MSCR, as well as external community providers, where some 29 sites are being utilized and serving as childcare sites for 1,000 students across MMSD. So we really wanted to try to lay the foundation for our students so they can be as successful as possible given this environment. And when I say partners, what I mean mostly are organizations like the Boys and Girls Club, Urban League, Centro Hispano, 100 Black Men, partners that are in the community and have a farther reach and a touch point with our students and families. But I also mean convene community centers, neighborhood centers like our Vera Court, Goodman, Lusher, and by no means is this list exhaustive. We have fantastic partnerships in community, but it also takes the entire community stepping up to support our students. And so as we get into Q2, and as we know we're going to be virtual for Q2, what has been really exciting has been working with partners and in creative and innovative ways. And the same for our staff, our principals and our teachers have also been really creative that, and I appreciate the foundation being laid around, we still have to be safe. We still have to make sure that the safety of our students is still paramount, but how can we continue to support them academically? So partners are just starting to launch programming around academic tutoring, mentoring, homework help, other academic supports that are either really deep and one-on-one or in group settings to help extend the support of our schools. But we're also looking at other really important work around social emotional learning, mental health supports, and those are all areas where our students need that, especially now during this pandemic. And in terms of resources and how to just find resources that are available, like Angela mentioned, the MMSD resources, virtual learning resources page lists things like the pantries that are available and where to get meals, where to get those resources. But we also have two sites I want to share with you guys tonight, and my colleagues will be putting them in the comment box. But if you're still looking for things like childcare, the City of Madison worked very hard with 4C to launch a database. Well, the database already existed, but to expand the database, I should say, around school age providers that are offering slots. It's live. It is and able to be searched, so you can see who has available spots. And it is updated regularly, so they will be putting that in the comments. And another one I want to bring up is around our MOST coalition and our MOST program finder, where many programs, I should say, have moved to a virtual space. They're still figuring out what they're doing, and some are still offering in-person programming. So that other link that they will be putting in is also another area you can search. It is dependent on whether or not the organization is updating it, if it's up-to-date information, but at least it shows you contact information and where these organizations are located to see if they're in your neighborhood. So that's another resource that I would encourage you all to look at. And again, just want to say my thanks to our partners in our community for helping to support our students and in these unprecedented times. And I will defer to other colleagues if you want to talk about some of the other resources that MMSD is providing.
Bree, thank you for that. There's obviously a ton that our community partners are doing for us. I'll also just mention, just since you highlighted the website, that we also have a Being Well page there that has a number of activities that are, things that both adults, families can access as well as kids. There's also a mental health page there that provides links to a number of our resources and other community resources around mental health as well. But obviously, here in the middle of virtual learning, we still want every student to feel engaged. We want them to feel valued, included, and safe. And it starts with the social interactions that are connected with a classroom and all the other school activities. We want to make sure that students have healthy peer groups and other social connections as well, hoping that they have spaces where they can be honest with each other and just have unstructured communication. Our teachers are, of course, our primary connectors with students and families. They engage their students in so many ways, and they're often the first to know if students or families need any additional support. Whenever a teacher senses that a student or a family might need some additional support, they reach out to their support colleagues, and our student support teams are kind of right there behind our teachers to provide any level of necessary support. And there's a lot of overlapping kind of integrated efforts, but I'll just highlight our social workers are great resources for whatever a family might need in terms of basic needs or mental health support, social emotional support, anything that a family might be sort of working through. A social worker is a primary resource to help make those connections, whether it's also financial needs, food, housing, clothing, connection to food sources, etc. Our counselors are right there to also help students make sure that they're connecting, that their graduate plans are ready to go. That's starting to work on post-secondary searches for some of our high school students, navigating any questions around credit and grading and course schedules and those sorts of things. Our school psychologists work really closely with our teachers to make sure that we're meeting students' social, emotional, and mental health needs. Providing strong connection also with our community partners. So we're providing sort of tiers of mental health support as needed. And I also want to highlight our nurses. Our nurses are such an incredible resource, and nurse assistants right now. They're our sort of primary source for all information around COVID, precautions, what it means if you were exposed, what it means to be a close contact. And when we have those cases that pop up in our schools now, our nurses take the lead and kind of working through that to make sure that the community has what they need to make necessary adjustments. And lastly, just wanted to highlight our PBIS coaches or deans or some other staff that our families might have contact with, who are our relationship builders, kind of focusing on helping our teachers make sure that that their classrooms are supported and that kids have what they need in those spaces. So there are a lot of resources and supports available in our community, but also just right there within our schools. And, you know, the best point of contact would be teachers, but I would also encourage our families to reach out to a number of those other professionals in our buildings who work very closely together to make sure that students have what they need and are meeting their goals academically.
Thank you for that, both Jay and Bree. Oh, apologies. Sound like, was that you, Bree?
Yeah, sorry, Angela. I just
No,
want to
go
add
ahead.
one point that I really appreciate Jay bringing up that I want to reiterate is that connection with your teacher. Many of the programs that I had been referring to, especially around academic support, really are only launching and getting off the ground now. And notwithstanding figuring out this new way of working in a virtual space and what was possible for partners, and already trying to follow public health guidelines, and then some partners had to restrict what they were doing, and just sort of figuring out our landscape. Even if this was a regular school year, our academic tutoring programs, for instance, our mentoring programs, really only get started in the October to early November timeframe, because many of them are based on teacher and staff recommendations. So, talk to your teachers, talk to your principals if you are interested, or they may be even in touch very soon to say that they would like your student to be involved in these programs. So know that it's that we're really starting to pick up momentum now into the school year, and the timing couldn't be better now that we know that we're going into another quarter of virtual learning.
Thank you for that addition, Bree, and to you as well, Jay. We have another question that came in that's related to community resources. Before I get into that, though, I did want to encourage our viewers that if you know of resources in the community that have not been uplifted, because while our panel is illustrious and super wise, we don't have all the answers. So there are things that you all may know about that we are not yet aware of, and we would like that information to still be shared with our community. So please feel free to share things that you know families could benefit from and that you are aware of in our MMSD community. So a question that came up that's a nice connection to what you all just talked about was about daycare. So a viewer wanted to know, will more daycare slots be added? There are still many students on the wait list whose families need daycare. So unfortunately, that isn't needed at this time.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. A colleague of ours oversees MSCR, and she has been working tirelessly to try to support as many students as possible. The biggest barrier right now is staff across the board, with having to maintain social distancing, public health guidelines. Many providers had to shift staff accordingly. So previously we could have had older students in a gym together, mixing classrooms. We can't do that in the same way with childcare, and especially childcare in a COVID site. So we're trying to hire more staff. So if you are interested, MSCR, our other community providers are all actively recruiting, and the hope is we will have more interested personnel who want to work. And now that we know that we'll be virtual another quarter, the hope is that we'll actually be able to bring them on and expand and fill or release those listed slots that were referenced. But that has been one of the biggest barriers to get over, has been staff, because what could have been a program that had staff fully equipped to serve both elementary and, let's say, middle school students had to shift all their programming just to elementary to support the same number of students, and they didn't have additional staff. And then, of course, linked to that is resources in terms of financial resources, because of the budget to have even more personnel. So it's a combination of One, there's still vacancies across the board. I can speak to MSDR. There are some 30 positions still open that they are looking to fill, not to mention our community partners who are also supporting students. But that's also the case around our community. Our other providers, our other community partners who are providing in-person daycare are still looking for staff and other resources. So we are working very closely with the City of Madison in particular to figure out creative ways to continue to provide these supports. But the hope is that now that we know we have another 2 months effectively of virtual learning, that there will be, these positions are open and could potentially be filled soon.
Thank you for that, Bree. Any other responses to that question? If not, another question was raised that was related to our decision to remain virtual. So the question was, can you please help us understand how all the surrounding districts deemed it safe to bring back K through 2 or K through 4, and Madison determined it wasn't safe?
Yeah, that's obviously a great question. I know there's been a lot of media coverage on, every district taking a slightly different approach. We were in regular calls throughout the summer with representatives from across the county with our public health partners. And I know that there were lots of different perceptions. People were listening to their communities. And I think quite honestly, our Madison community was telling us through feedback that there was a reluctance to return. I think there was also this perception across Dane County that it was just in Madison and that it wasn't something that was affecting surrounding communities. I think public health's metric for opening for K through 2 is an average of 54 cases per day or lower. And in mid to late August, it was below that. And I think a lot of our surrounding districts in Dane County felt like it was the best for them to open. But we sort of saw what was coming, and today that number is up close to 190. And it just isn't safe for us to open at this point. I think, obviously our youngest students we know are, that they're facing additional challenges. I think, especially we know that our Zoom spaces are doing our best to recreate what would be happening in a classroom, but what we know students don't have is the playground and the cafeteria and the hallway and before school and the bus ride and after school. And, that's something that's a little easier for our older students that have other social connections and social media and communicating with friends that they've, in some cases had, growing up through elementary school. But for our elementary students, we know that that's not the same, and they may still be looking to meet those friends in those Zoom spaces. And so, that's certainly the first group that would be coming back into our schools when we're able to return in person, and we're fully aware of that. But for now, this is what's safest, and we know that that our youngest students have parents and have contact with other relatives and can spread the virus as well. So I think that's just a little bit more around why maybe some of our surrounding communities made different decisions. But I mentioned earlier the importance of routine, and we read every day that districts are switching in and out of virtual learning to in-person learning and back to virtual. And as a parent, I know that puts stress on families as well to adjust back and forth. And it's really hard on our students too, to not necessarily know over the weekend, am I going to be staying home next week, or do I have to go in and, and take that test that was scheduled? And so, while virtual doesn't necessarily allow us to meet all of the objectives and things that we'd like to meet, it does provide consistency and routine for both our students, our staff, but also for our families.
Wow. Excellent response, Jay. Thank you. And so the next question, actually, Jay, I think is directed towards you as well. It builds off of something you mentioned earlier around the mental health resources that were available in MSD Virtual Learning Resources Hub.
Yep.
So the question is, how will you weigh the mental health needs and research on the need for our youngest students to be in person with physical safety?
Yeah, we've got right now almost a third of our younger students in our childcare programs, which is allowing them some of that social interaction. But as I mentioned before, and just knowing that our younger students are less connected socially to peers, a number of our schools are being really innovative with some of the other things that they do outside of those structured academic times, and would just really, highlight the importance of students finding some of those other ways to be engaged. I think unstructured social experiences and play is really, really important for them to be able to just be kids and interact with each other in social ways. Some of our schools are also offering clubs, and in some cases affinity spaces and other ways for students to have a space to just sort of share how they're doing and what they're feeling. I think the social, emotional, and mental health of our kids is so critically important, and it is the #1 challenge right now. For them to not have what so many of them depend on. I'm also just thinking, our older students, there's so many traditions and things that, a fall play or a concert that isn't happening, or, an athletic program, but our younger students are just missing out on being with each other and making new friends. And so, I think keeping our focus on that, that's at the heart of our conversation about, as soon as we can, opening back up so we can bring our little ones back.
Yes. Thank you again for that response.
Mhm.
Is there anything anyone would like to add to that piece, or?
Sure, I'll jump in. To Jay's point, not just the awareness, but we are specifically planning and doing programming and adjusting our instructional design, knowing that our students are experiencing loss right now. Loss of that human interaction, loss of the interaction from peer to peer, adult to peer relationships that they've had with teachers for some course of time. And we have some of our most vulnerable students during the critical transition years that are in a new space or a new grade level that don't know anyone in that space. And so how we are trying to adjust for that as well. Join the kindergarten class, and it melts your heart as you see the desire, the smiles, and the play. But they would much rather be right there in person doing things together. So I say all that to say that as part of, it's not just a schedule that deals with core content or academics. We are very highly invested in the social emotional supports of our students as well, and we're doing that by making sure that we have structured morning meetings, structured space for teacher office hours, so they can work one-on-one with students, work one-on-one with families, and you really get that personal connection. While it is across a screen, at least it's that personalized connection, so they can just kind of get to know each other on a deeper level. And so I just think in our instructional design, as we look at the schedule, we don't want to measure everything on instructional minutes and not forget about how important it is that you have human contact and human interaction, and that you continue to build the soul and spirit of our youth. And so we're prioritizing that as well. And that ties into making sure that we are supporting mental health, our teachers will be the greatest advocate, along with the counselors, social workers, and psychologists that are within the schools. And please, parents, if you know something with your child at home, just reach out, and we will work to get collaboratively with you to provide the best supports possible. And again, for Madison family, and I just want to make sure we continue to reiterate that the care that we have for one another is authentic and it's real.
Thank you, Dr. Clarity.
Thank you for that. The only other thing that I just wanted to lift up is, obviously we've had more of a focus on social emotional learning now than ever before, and not just in sort of standalone extra activities, but embedded in what every teacher is doing in the classroom. And that's because we know that our students' social emotional needs need additional support right now. And so a lot more dedicated time to that, like relationship and community building, and really trying to help our students develop those social skills to sort of process, the isolation they might be experiencing and the challenge of learning virtually. And so our teachers are absolutely aware of those mental health needs and are supporting that in an embedded way every day through social emotional learning.
Thank you, Jay.
I would also add to that as well, that it doesn't just rest at the elementary level.
Yes.
We experience the same at the secondary level as well. And we have been very intentional in putting things in place to address the social emotional piece. We've added advisors for every student so that every student will have that one adult that they'll have constant contact with to ensure the social and emotional well-being of that child. Not only that, I want the community to know and really understand that we see you and we hear you. The feedback that you provided on those surveys from students and parents, we took that information along with feedback that we gathered from teachers and principals, and we made some shifts. We made intentional shifts to make sure we address that. One of the elements in the feedback that was elevated was just that. They wanted more time with teachers. They wanted more interaction. And so we reimagined how we utilize Wednesdays so that teachers could more intentionally reach out to parents and engage more often with students just for that piece. Even the flexibility of allowing space for them to come together and socialize if they have to do that, to fill that void. But most importantly, I want you to know that we have your child's best interest at heart. We're behind the scenes every day, not only looking at the academic side, but the social and emotional development side for not only our students, but our teachers as well. You know, many of our students, teachers, I should say, are parents. And so they're trying to navigate both. They're trying to support their child in this teaching and learning environment in a virtual platform, and at the same time, deliver quality instruction of your child. And so it's a new territory for all of us. We realize that we're not getting it all right, but I think if you go back to when we were thrust into this virtual environment, this pandemic, you know, we're light years ahead of where we were acting in a reactive mode. Now we're in a planning mode where we have things in motion, and then we're constantly reviewing and assessing whether or not they're effective and making those adjustments. So I say all that to say this: your feedback is critical. And so when we send those surveys out, you know, it's very important that you elevate your voice and let us know what we need to do or what we can do better.
Thank you. I so appreciate the collaborative approach to responding to that question. There were so many awesome perspectives that complement each other, as well as Dr. Pryor, you're emphasizing the value that we attach to family voice and student voice. We do not want to make decisions that are not responsive to your needs and that aren't cognizant of the things that you are requesting. So please, through this channel and the other channels that are made available, let your voice, your needs, what you are seeing happening on your home front be known so that we can plan accordingly. So I think it's about that time for us to wind down. So as we're coming to a close, did want to give space for you all to share any closing comments or remarks you have for our family members and those in our community who have taken time out tonight to hear from us. So who would like to go first?
Angela, I can go, and
Thanks, Jay.
I'll just restate something that Dr. Clarity said earlier, because I think it's really important. We all want our schools to go back to in person, and we can have our students face to face with their peers and with our teachers. And you know, we went through all the various things that we're monitoring to hopefully get to that point once we get into second semester. But what we do as a community right now is critical. And that's what all the epidemiologists are telling us, that we're right now quite a ways away from them giving us a green light. And you know, masks and social distancing and avoiding crowds. You know, we're heading into winter, and a coronavirus, similar to cold and flu, it spreads more in winter months. The air is a little drier, and people spend more time indoors, and it's more important than ever that we sort of take those precautions. We'd love to get to second semester and be able to make some of these shifts to in person. So just ask our community to recognize that, you know, if we all work together, we can get to that point sooner, for sure.
Absolutely. Dr. Clarity, it sounded like you wanted to share as well.
Thank you, and thanks for lifting that back up, Jay. To Jay's point, though, with how the community responds and how we respond to each other would really be a key predictor of our ability to go back safely and the best support of our students and families. I really just wanted to just say thank you to the families that are on the other end that are listening either live right now or maybe listen to this later in another platform. But as to Dr. Pryor's point around the feedback that you give us and the personalized narratives that you share about what a family is experiencing, what a student is experiencing, those really truly drive decision making, because we all want to work in partnership and we all want to do what's best for our students. We are really working with intentionality to make sure that we do not recreate systems that they're marginalized, and we do not recreate situations that lead to disproportionality. And so that is incumbent upon us as a full school community to intentionally reach out to make sure that we're hearing all those voices and that we react and have action steps based off those voices in an authentic manner. And so I thank you for all those responses that we've had. And if you haven't had a chance, please continue to give us feedback so we can continue the cycle of continuous improvement. As we want to be the model district nationwide in everything we do, we want to be the model district for right now, our current state of virtual, until we are science-based ready to return back into our buildings. And then finally, just if our staff's not on right now, or if they get a chance to listen to it, if you're as a staff member, thank you so much. Just the hard work and dedication of our staff. And I say our entire staff. There's so many people that fall into that staff category that are all educators, that are all supporting what we're doing. The voices of our school leaders, teachers. I shouldn't do a list because I'm gonna miss a group, but thank you so much to our educators that are working so hard to provide the best circumstances for our children. They're really partnering. They're going above and beyond. They're sometimes sacrificing things in their own, in our personal life, just and in service of our students and families. So thank you so much for continuing to be there for us. And we see you and we cherish you.
Thank you, Dr. Clarity. Look like Dr. Pryor, you want to jump in?
In closing for me tonight, I would also like to thank all the parents, supporters out there. I thank you for believing in us as a team to do right by your children. I can assure you, I've only been here for about 8 weeks, and I have never seen a team that was so focused on trying to get this thing right, that were willing to receive feedback, constructive criticism, a team that welcomed the opportunity to be pushed to look at things differently. I honestly believe that there's a silver lining in the midst of all that we have experienced over the past month. I'm so confident that on the other side of this, because there will eventually be another side of this, we will return back to a new normal, but I think we're going to be stronger, we're going to be better, because we're adding another layer of support that we will have at our disposal when we return in person for our children. And I think this is really going to support us in delivering on the promise that we have made to you as parents, made to you as students, made to you as a community, that we will ensure that every student that enters MMSD will graduate on time, ready for college, career, and community. That's our commitment to you, and we thank you for supporting us to this point. And again, help us help you. Let's wear those masks. Let's practice these the best practices so that we can be in person again. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Pryor. Do you want to share something, Bree?
I just want to, of course, going last after these wonderful statements of thanks, but I want to also reiterate my thanks to, again, to the partners that I have shared earlier. Your innovation and your creativity has been inspiring, and I really want to lift up what Dr. Pryor just said around the silver lining. I think that there are some real opportunities that are exciting about how we have been doing work in the past and how we can pivot that work and what we're learning as a community, and how that support can be expanded. And I mean, I'm even thinking about, wouldn't it be wonderful if we can continue virtual tutoring and have other community members that couldn't be there, let's say, in the classroom during the day, but are available virtually, and they can continue to support our students. So I think that there's real opportunity. It's inspiring what's possible. And of course, to continue that energy as we, like Dr. Pryor said, get on the other side of this, because we will. But thankful to my colleagues, to our teachers, our staff, and to our families, most important, our families, because we know that all of this is done in service of you and of our students. And so thank you for being here and taking the time to speak with us this evening.
Thank you for emphasizing that, Bree, the opportunities that present that possibly can extend beyond this time of being virtual, that will present exciting opportunities for families and students. And thank you to my entire panel tonight for taking time out of your evening to share with families, with our community, the resources and information that will help with our continued success, ideally, within this new virtual environment that we're finding ourselves in. We also want to thank the Communications and Family Youth and Community Engagement departments for putting this event together, as well as other colleagues who are behind the scenes contributing to the chat, offering their insights to those who are dropping questions in. We're going to be checking that chat beyond tonight. So if you happen to see this beyond the live window, please still feel free to drop a question or a comment if you feel so led. And we will hop in and be responsive again through our mmsd.org/virtual. The Virtual Learning Resources Hub is where we plan to be responsive to the outstanding questions that remain in that space. So thank you all again. Thank you to our families. Thank you to our community. We so value your voice. Please keep the conversation going. And we hope that you have a great night.